Good news, everyone! This episode of Topsy-Turvy TV Parable Sex and the City is all about fragile masculinity. Finally, a lifetime of experience comes in handy. So, do a terrible job of covering up your insecurities. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Steve, bless him, is having a bit of a hard time after his testiclectomy in the last episode. And while there's an expected period of adjustment after a cancer diagnosis and major surgery, I draw the line at his wistful envy of a dog's massive knackers. Miranda's supportive attitude abruptly hits a wall too, when Steve suggests he might get a fake one installed. She's confusingly very against the idea in such a way that a less generous person than I might interpret as her cultivating a garden she plans on revisiting soon. Putting aside her forceful assertion that nobody cares what's down there, a flagrant lie which polite society tells itself, surely it shouldn't matter anyway. If someone wants reconstructive surgery for any reason, but especially after an illness, tell them to fill their boots. And their sack. At a viewing for his replacement family jewel, the doctor advises him to squeeze one to test its realism, adding to the wildly inaccurate picture this entire episode paints of how often the average man likes to have his ghoulies violently crushed. Miranda, in tow as moral support, manages to drop the prosthetic, but resists what I imagine is her immediate visceral instinct to grind it into dust underfoot. After stoking Steve's insecurities again by underselling the serving size of his nuts, she convinces him to opt out of what's revealed to be a clinical trial. She does this by comparing the artificial nads to the Ford Pinto. Though presumably the contents of Steve's ball bag carry significantly less risk of blowing up and killing a family of 4. Miranda's alternative solution is to gift Steve a self-help book, and when that, unsurprisingly, fails to restore his sexual confidence, just f***s him instead. Which isn't the healthiest way to cheer him up, but as any guy will tell you, is always worth a try. In one of the most accurate and prophetic pieces of writing this show ever manages, Aidan answers Carrie's phone by saying,
"Bradshaw, how's the pain? How can we hurt you?"
A question that's answered by the fact that it's Big calling to trauma dump his problems with movie star girlfriend Willow, who I remain convinced he has never actually met. Afterwards, Aidan makes a weak attempt at pretending that Big's festering presence doesn't bother him, during which he, upsettingly, manages to compare him to Batman. Which only holds up in the sense that in both their houses, you'll find teenage hostages forced to run around in their underwear. Carrie's objectively unhinged solution is to convince Aidan that he has nothing to worry about by getting all 3 of them in a room at the same time. Which is why, in this episode, her usual "oh no, however did this happen" bullshit doesn't wash when she makes it reality. She accompanies Aidan to his countryside murder shack again, and whoopsie daisy just happens to leave its phone number on her answering machine.
"Bradshaw, how's the pain? How can we hurt you?"
"It's me. I need to talk to you."
Knowing full well that the only 2 numbers Big has memorized are hers and whichever premium rate TV phone-in was showing past midnight in 2001. One predictable, stalky phone call later, and Carrie's pacing the deck waiting to tell Aidan that Grandpa Breakdown is on his way, with the anxious energy of a kid who just shat the bed so ferociously that it also broke every window in the house. When Big eventually emerges, Carrie's idea of counselling him through his breakup is to ply him with 2 bottles of red wine and a magazine containing a centre spread of his ex. She might as well have handed him a gun and gone out for a walk. The next morning, it all quickly, inevitably devolves into Big and Aiden doing the least sexy mud wrestling I've ever seen, suspiciously airing just a few short months after the release of Bridget Jones's Diary and its infamous fountain fight. Draw your own conclusions. Having gotten their pissing contest out of the way, the two men are then, magically, on better terms. Carrie herself marvels at how little sense this makes, which is, at least, admirably self-aware of the writers. A self-awareness that I would advise you to enjoy while you can, because trust me, it ain't gonna last. Strap yourselves in everyone. Richard's about to enter both the scene and soon enough, Samantha. Courtesy of an old lay, she gets a meeting with Tricky Dicky to discuss running PR for his latest hotel, at which he unashamedly reels off a number of sexist views before and after suggesting that the only way she'll get the job is by working alongside a man. His concern is that a woman would be too emotional to handle the task alone, which in Samantha's position I'd have responded to by setting him on fire and calmly watching the flames, while sipping one of his f***ing lobby cappuccinos. After being advised not to cry in front of him by the other ladies, Samantha decides to go in all guns blazing, impress Dick, and prove her worth. An admirable approach, though time has taught me that life's too short to waste on morons. She'd be just as well served spreading the rumour that the hotel's bathwater causes c***s to drop off. Despite acknowledging her credentials, Richard refuses to hire Samantha after discovering her hanky-panky history with his architect. Though frankly, any workplace that can't function if the staff are occasionally banging isn't likely to make the next quarter. Regardless, Ms. Jones stands her ground and points out his glaring hypocrisy, managing to hide her resulting tears from him long enough to bag the job after all. And while I know there's a gender imbalance in how these things are viewed, I think everyone deserves a good cry in the workplace every now and then. For example, it's highly unlikely that I'll make it to the end of this show without having a complete and explosive nervous breakdown. Watch this space! Like an amuse-bouche of horror, our first glimpse of Charlotte this episode is when Trey refers to her as his mushu while they eat Chinese takeout. And it only gets worse from there. Charlotte, you see, is eyes down for baby Bingo, and Trey, evidently, has quickly become tired of it being their main topic of conversation. After a chat with her doctor, she wants to have his special sauce tested, which I imagine would involve having to chase the mutated stuff around with a net to gather enough for a sample. Trey also takes offense at the suggestion that he might be the cause of their failure to conceive, which, let's be honest, is not the most defensible position considering his floppy, squirty history. If, after all that, he turned out to have super spooge, it would surely act as proof of a higher power with a serious vendetta against him. In her own, grosser version of the Biggs moving to Paris meme, Charlotte interrupts a perfectly good lunch with this.
We're having Trey's tested.
It's a wonder there's anybody left in New York willing to patronize that place. Unfortunately, Trey's ailing wiener once again lets him down at the doctor's office. But never fear, because Charlotte, the living embodiment of In It to Win It, came prepared with a fresh copy of Jugs magazine. Her heroic efforts to sell Trey on this month's Big Boobs Bonanza are unfortunately overshadowed by his realization that she expected his wrinkle sticker to malfunction. Trey's admission that he's at his limit for between me down there problems is understandable, but the fact that he's a doctor and standing in a fertility clinic but hasn't sought any medical help for the empty sausage casing in his hand does undermine it. Lucky then that Charlotte is quite literally on hand to jumpstart proceedings, which she does with what turns out to be an accurate reassurance that Trey has
Very strong Scottish
the true meaning of which does somewhat depend on which part of Scotland she's referring to. Snot from Balamory, for example, might be colourful and sweet. And muck from Glasgow might be nice to look at, but almost certain to kill you. A man milk mystery. Last video's top comment came to us from Maddie Miss, who rode a wave of peer pressure at a Disney park. FYI, Tower of Terror is what I call the elevator ride up to the apartment of any man over 6.5 feet tall who you've known for less than an hour. I'm a golden pass holder. This video's question is, have you ever called in a favour from an ex? Or have they ever tried to call one in from you? Drop your answers in the comments below and the best will twist our arms next time. Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.